The Man with the Golden Gun is now 50 years old and remains one of the most entertaining entries in the series. We gathered to discuss why we love the film so much, and it was great to have so many of you contribute with your thoughts.
You mean to say there is no way to trace that bullet? No idea what it went through to get here.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. The workmanship is undemanding according to our standards. Soft 23-carat gold with traces of nickel. Hardly ever used in Europe. Comes from India.
Far East.
Oh, why not India?
Nickel content obviously too low, 007.
The Tsar?
The Tsar. Imaginative. Highly specialized. Yes, I concur.
In part 2 of our celebration, we discuss Roger's performance as well as his Bond girls. I remember, Steve, when we did Live and Let Die, I think you said you perhaps found that, obviously you love all his performances, but that was maybe your least favourite because it was new and stuff. So it's interesting that a lot of people would not say that, oh, it's a step up. You know, Roger's performance is a step up. But he's doing more things, isn't he? It's a more varied performance already.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Live and Let Die, but I do feel that, and I know I don't want to say Roger's the weak link in it because I love Roger in all his films, but I just think had a young Sean Connery been in that film, I think I might have liked it even more, or Timothy Dalton of the right age. But I just feel like he doesn't seem to own the film. The film Live and Let Die has got so much great visuals and so many great ideas. It's almost, I feel like Roger gets a little bit lost in it. I don't entirely think that's his fault, because when we discussed this, and I said I was surprised they didn't give him a more impactful introduction like they did with Dalton or Brosnan later, it was suggested that it was quite nice the way he's just gently kind of brought into it, and you just accept, oh, this guy's Bond now. So I get that, but just for me, it doesn't have that impact. But in The Man with the Golden Gun, I feel like Roger absolutely owns this film. And, I know Spy is seen as probably his best performance and the one that they'd shaped to suit him, where he's always funny, but they use his humour perhaps in the way that really suits him. And they use also the more serious parts in the way that suits Roger in Spy really well. But I think in The Man with the Golden Gun, he absolutely owns this. The way he spars with people, including Christopher Lee, which I think is terrific to have Roger up against such a great actor as that. And I think he's got a good script. He's got good lines. I adore the scene in M's office when Roger walks in, and I think he's asked about Solex or Scaramanga, but he just comes out with so much information and just completely plays it deadpan.
What do you know about a man called Scaramanga, 007?
Scaramanga? Oh, yes. The Man with the Golden Gun. Born in a circus, father the ringmaster, possibly Cuban, mother English, a snake charmer. He was a spectacular trick shot artist by the time he was 10 and a local Rio gunman at 15. The KGB recruited him there and trained him in Europe, where he became an overworked, underpaid assassin.
Those are the kind of gags that, as a kid, I wouldn't have got. I just thought, oh, he knows a lot, doesn't he? Now it's just funny that he walks in and just knows everything. And you just get M kind of just looking at him like, crikey, I love that. And I think Roger absolutely is brilliant in this.
I think that's all.
And again, I think it all stems from the fact that this film didn't do quite as well as Live and Let Die. So people think everything's wrong about it. They think the music's wrong, and they think Roger's not great, this and that and the other. And then he was saved because The Spy Loved Me was so wonderful. Well, The Spy Loved Me is so wonderful, but I still think this is brilliant, and it's just got a fake reputation as not being a very good Bond film. I think Roger's great in it, and really benefits from being up against Christopher Lee. I think they bring the best out of each other.
Very busy that year as well, wasn't he? Because he'd done Man with the Golden Gun, and then Gold came out that year as well.
Peter Hunt film. Yeah,
Peter Hunt movie. And then the following year, he did a thing. So he would have been filming during 74 or early 75, which I think was Shelley Winters, called That Lucky Touch, with Susanna York again. So he was really on the roll. I mean, he was once Bond had landed. I mean, he was a star anyway. He'd been a star since the 60s. But as a film star, not as much with Crossplot, which came out a few years before. But once he started with Bond, Live and Let Die, then he was just on an upward arc. And they were throwing the Devil as well. Shout at the Devil in 76. I mean, they just kept throwing these pictures at him.
Can't
I
believe
mean,
it.
John, you're a huge Roger Moore fan. So what do you think of him in this film?
The thing about Roger is, if the script is written in such a way, he'll adapt it accordingly. Guy Hamilton is a good example of this, where he will allow Roger to do what Roger does best. If there's a gag in the line, lovely, let him read it. If there isn't one, there probably will be by the time he's read it 2 or 3 times, because he'll find a way of making it a little lighter, just enabling him to get the point across, but also to raise one of those famous eyebrows, or do a little turn at somebody, or an eye roll. It's timing is everything, and there's a number, and that moment that you refer to there in Bond's office, where he's going through a number of bits and pieces, and Bond, he says to him, who would pay $1 million to have me killed? And then M then tells him, and he's just, there's an eye roll, and puts the bullet back down on the table.
Charming trinket. It even has my number on it.
Precisely.
Well, obviously it's useless as a bullet. I mean, sir, who would pay $1 million to have me killed?
Jealous husbands, outraged chefs, humiliated tailors. The list is endless. Moreover, this trinket, as you call it, was sent with a note requesting special delivery to you. It's initialed with an S.
So there's lots of that, and you couldn't have got away with that with Sean. As good as Sean is, yeah, there's the lines, but I can make that better. Well, go ahead and do it then. There's no issue. The Mankiewicz is not going to go, no, these are my words. You do what you want to do. If you can make them better, then by all means. And he's pretty consistent in that, in all of the pictures that he does, and that's why he's a really, really safe pair of hands. And as we say, it made 12 times its budget. It wasn't a failure, but critically people are going, it's not Live and Let Die, is it? Or it's not this, or it's not that. No, it's Man with a Golden Gun, and you have to look at it as an independent entity. And on the strength of that, it works, and it works primarily because Roger's in it. Steve, you made a very interesting point there. I'm not entirely certain. I can't quite get my head around the idea of Connery having done it, but it certainly wouldn't have been the same picture. It would have been a very, very different, a darker picture probably. But it's an interesting idea. But I think the reason that it works is because Roger's doing what Roger does best, and he's always done that, whether it be on television or film.
The other thing I'm going to add to that is, think about the year. Lazenby was doing Hong Kong Kung Fu movies.
Yes.
If Lazenby had taken this role or stayed on as Bond, I think this would have been the film that would have established Lazenby well and truly in the role of 007.
Yeah.
Because he was meant to be doing films with Bruce Lee, doing films in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
This would have been so well suited to Lazenby. But
written around the topic, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's such an interesting what if he'd done it, if Connery had done it, absolutely.
Chris, is it the most Fleming Roger film in terms of the serious sides of it? I know everyone would automatically say it's For Your Eyes Only, but for some reason they never mention this. They just say, "Oh, I don't like it when Roger's not doing Roger things," but that, like the bedroom scene, the bathroom scene, it's that sort of. It's funny because it's a little bit nasty, isn't it? The way it's not pleasant, but you can get away with it somehow.
Yeah, I do think it is, like you say, I understand these comments about it. It made him feel uncomfortable because that's not really the Bond that Roger was or is or became. But I understand why it's in, and it works as a scene because it is to remind the audience that Bond is ruthless and he can be very mean, and he can be very mean to women and use them in that way. So dramatically and as a standalone scene, I think it's actually really good, and I think Roger does absolutely pull it off. It is convincing, and he is. There is a coldness to him that you don't see very often, and he'll obviously he was probably he wasn't his biggest fan, was it, when he talked about his own acting abilities? But I think he deserved more credit as an actor. I think not only in terms of being dramatic, but just having that screen presence is. And to be able to take that material and make it believable, no matter how ridiculous the plot is or the dialogue is, he always sold it. And I think that requires, a fair amount of talent. But yeah, I think there's a hint of sort of Fleming in that. the scene itself is really good, and I think a lot of that is also with John Barry's score. I think John Barry's score in that scene really gives it an edge. You know, it becomes very dramatic and quite scary. I remember as a kid, you know, whenever you saw, because he's Roger Moore, he's quite, you know, cuddly. He's like your favourite uncle, and then to see him being rough,
my arm,
cold, and even though the scene sort of ends with he pours a drink. It's still like, oh,
he's had to injure it to get to that point. Yeah.
And he doesn't sit well.
So I'll tell you what you're going to do, Miss Anders. You're going to take those golden bullets to Mr. Scaramanga, because if he doesn't get them, he may not show up at the bottoms up. And I want him there.
Why should you trust me?
I don't. But neither will Mr. Scaramanga trust you if he hears about this interesting little conversation. Who knows? He may even use one of those little golden bullets on you. And that would be a pity, because they're very expensive.
I'll take them to him.
Let's drink to that. Bottoms up.
But it's in the film, and I think it works dramatically. And again, hindsight, oh well, I didn't enjoy it, and is it really suitable for you know, Roger's Bond? But it's also a reminder that, you know, there are parallels between, you know, Scaramanga and Bond, and this is Bond being like Scaramanga and treating a woman not very well, as you see later on, where you know, she's in bed and he sort of starts to caress her with a gun, and you see that switch, not that look on his face. So I think it is a slight sort of parallel to that. You know, it's almost like they're almost the same scene essentially. You know, her, vulnerable because she's naked, and them coming into her bedroom.
I do see that, but also I think that even though it's quite a dark scene for Roger, it's lightened. Well, you know, she comes out with a gun, and he says, "Yeah, a water pistol," and you know, which sort of lightens it a touch. You know, if this had been a carry-on movie, Sid James would have said, "You haven't got any soap on that bit," you know? and the sort of juxtaposition of the two things.
Good afternoon. A water pistol.
And then later on, of course, in the room, he's trying to get information from her, and he's doing what Bond, as probably written, would have, you know, "You're hurting my arm. I'll break it unless you tell me what I want." You know, he's making it very clear that this is the information he wants. And then it comes back to Roger again at the end, where he pops the champagne and says, "Well, you know, bottoms up," you know, all that sort of stuff. So there are moments of Fleming in it. But when you've cast Roger as Bond, you have to accept that there has to be an element of leeway, enabling the audience to accept this agent as being, first an agent, but also he has to be quite a nice guy and quite a reliable guy and quite a funny guy. And then in moments, he has to do what he has to do, you know, and become that written character again. But I think the balance, nowadays when you look at it, you go, "Oh, that's a really tough scene to watch," and it is. But at the time, well, you know, that a lot of movies were doing that, and that's what it was, the male-influenced character, wasn't it?
Oh, you're hurting my arm.
I'll break it unless you tell me where those bullets go.
No, I can't.
Try.
They'll kill me.
Who?
Ah! I can't tell you. Scaramanga.
He carries it off pretty well, even though now he says himself, or then he said that it wasn't his best moment as Bond, and he accepts that it's, apart from throwing a child into the river, which you know,
part of the language. But I'd say Roger's performance of Bond, he's a bit of a bastard in this film, I'd say.
Yeah.
The character is absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm not. It's not a criticism as such. I'm trying to work it out in my head. It's not all that way because for everything.
I hate to see your compliment.
Because it's not all that way, because then you've got the great moments like Heaven, definitely Heaven, and that's classic Roger. That's absolutely classic Roger. But his treatment of women in this film is the issue. Roger's Bond is known, probably a bit generically across the board, as a lover, and his treatment of women across this is poor. So you've obviously got the physical altercation with Miss Anders, but the first time he meets Goodnight, he is so rude to her when she comes out and all the rest of it.
Madam, would you be good enough to move this inverted bedpan?
I'm sorry I'm late, James. A green rose?
A green Rolls Royce. There can't be that many in Hong Kong.
The thing with in the closet, and I know that he's getting information, but when Goodnight comes out, he's nasty.
You can come out now.
What time is it?
2-ish.
2? You mean I've been in here for 2 hours?
All in the line of duty.
Duty. I'm resigning in the morning.
Oh, good night. Come on, don't let us down. The service needs women like you.
Well, obviously you don't.
Forgive me, darling. Your turn will come, I promise. As soon as she brings me that Solex.
For killing Scaramanga?
If she gets me the Solex agitator first.
First? James, you must be good.
But the other side to that is that nastiness really works well when it's towards the men in this film. Yeah. So if you look at Lazar, and that's Roger being very cold-blooded, very nasty.
Bullets do not kill. It is the finger that pulls the trigger.
Exactly. I'm now aiming precisely at your groin. Says speak or forever hold your peace.
I've never seen Mr. Scaramanga.
On a cost-per-bullet basis, he must be your best customer.
That is true, but unfortunately he seems only to fire them occasionally.
When was the last shipment?
Mr. Bond, this is impossible. I cannot...
You're quite right. An inch too low.
Or you look at when he's confronting Scaramanga at the end and he says that, killing you would be a pleasure. That nastiness there works perfectly. So it is my least favourite Roger performance, but it's because it's slightly uneven. Is that he's got the nastiness right towards the men, and you see that perfectly portrayed, for me, with Locke later down the line. But he's still just moulding that nicer side of his character that you see further down the line. That's probably where I'm at with it.
Yeah, because I think people, the Locke scene and the moments, from Spy Love Me, when yes, I did kill him. People seem to be all right with him if it's just a quick little bit of him being serious, and he is brilliant at those.
Yeah,
he doesn't like the Locke thing. He doesn't like this scene, but the main reason the fans and people don't seem to like this scene is because it's against a woman, isn't it? That's what sets it apart from just
primarily
like Roger being serious. We do actually like Roger being serious, but this just seems a bit cruel. But as you say, in isolation, it's a very effective scene.
Roger would never have gotten away with shooting Elektra in The World Is Not Enough.
No.
You just couldn't have done it. Pierce can do it because of the situation, but Roger would never have been able to get away with it. And I think that's you're quite right. When it's dealing with men, even though he is unaccepting of it, as this, as a goodwill ambassador and as all of these bits and pieces that he later became, and tries to separate himself from that character and the Roger Moore that he later became. But yeah, when it's against a woman, then everybody else is going, sure, that's definitely not a Roger thing. Well, at the time, that was the direction, and he does kind of get away with it, on the basis of it, because the character is that bastard that you refer to. And, you know, when he's in bed with one woman and another one turns up, he's not going to go, sorry, love, I can't, you know, there's something's come up. He's going to say, come on in and we'll sort something out. And, you know, so that's evidently, which is what he's done, but with Roger's flair, you know.
It's an inspiration, sending that bullet.
The scenes we're talking about, the one with Maud, it's justified. But as John said, the stuff with Goodnight, when she first appears, and then even at the end, like, just push every damn button and all. He's in such a dreadful... I know people could die and this could be the end of everything, but he's just... He wouldn't be like that, I don't think, in any of his other films.
No.
Kill the beam! Hit the master override switch!
The what?
Good night!
Yes, James?
Now listen carefully. There's a console up there. Now there must be a scanner interlock button on it. Push it! Good night, are you still there? It'll be on the auxiliary feedback circuit.
Computer, interlock, is that it?
Just push every damn button, will you?
That's part of the script.
He is in a situation where
it's
a bit like Timothy Dalton, like, just turn the bloody machine off. You know?
That's done for laughs, though, isn't it? Whereas this is not. It doesn't. Don't you believe in signs? You know, is that meant to be for laughs? I don't really know.
Good night. I hate to ask stupid questions, but where exactly did you knock him cold?
He landed in that one.
Don't you believe in signs? We've got about 5 minutes before his body temperature raises that helium well above zero. Then this whole damn place will go sky high.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Can I also point out that she turned this machine on with her backside? You know, she backed into it and caused the issue in the first place.
Did she?
She's not made to look very good, is she?
No. She is the main Bond girl, but she's far less well received than Maud Adams' performance. Even though Maud Adams' performance is forgotten because she was Octopussy. So neither of them seem to get any credit, really, these days. And partly because you've got one of the greatest villains ever, and even people who don't like this film seem to acknowledge that. And you've got Nick Nack, who's a massive character, J.W. Pepper, who's a massive character. We will talk about all these folk. But Goodnight, just, it's that inconsistency, isn't it? That 1 minute she's extremely competent and an independent woman, in inverted commas, and then she's subservient, basically, and stupid.
Is she ever that competent? I'm not sure
she's I mean, she's, Maybe
I don't think she is.
Well, here we go. This is what we want. I think she is. I think she's written as, you know, that Bond goes in and sort of dismisses her straight off. She finds out obviously because she's got local knowledge where the limousine, the Rolls Royces are at the hotel. She does sort of track people. She does. There's the funny bit where he tries to sleep. You know, he tries to sleep with her and. I can't remember the line. It's something like "Yes, you bloody well would" or whatever it is. And then once they get to Scaramanga's Island, and she does get pushed into the boot of the car, but she literally is in there, and you know it would have been kind of difficult. These are my points, you know. And then at the end, she does talk about offering up clues to Bond, where she talks about how the mushrooms are really good. So she's offering him clues about where the laser is.
The fried mushroom looks terribly interesting.
Yes, I noticed that. I'll get around to it later. Having fun in the sun, good night?
Yes. I could stay here forever.
I think she starts off as actually being written as a you know, she's quite feisty, and she you know, she sort of sees through Bond's kind of bullshit, and then they just turn on her and just get her to fall in line, and she just ends up sleeping with her, you know, being pushed into and treated awfully, to be honest with you. And obviously, with it being a Guy Hamilton film, she's in a bikini at the end, you know, kind of, and then gets sort of, you know, and then. But I'm a big fan of her actually, because I do think she's got something about her. Yeah. It's just that the writing later on does really undermine her character. The fact that she just says, "I'm not going to sleep with you," and then literally a couple of scenes later, seconds later, she's in bed waiting for him. But I think she's pretty good actually.
But Roger Moore, I mean, who wouldn't? Can only resist for so long.
Weren't they both auditioning, Maud and Britt both auditioning for the same role?
Oh yes.
Am I right in saying that there was only Mary Goodnight and that Andrea was created later? Is that right?
Maybe, but even though she turns out to be a massively important character and plot point,
Nick Nat couldn't have carried that on himself, on his own. He's quite literally half the man that Maud Adams is.
You know what I mean? What's interesting with Mary Goodnight, my theory is this, because up until the point where she's introduced, she's effectively handling the mission herself.
Yes, she is. You're right.
Yeah.
Because that's where she's competent, because obviously she meets Bond, she provides all the information, relays all the facts, but as soon as the mission transfers into Bond's hands, she becomes useless. And that's the switch. And I think she's very competent at the beginning of the film, but as soon as the responsibility transfers over to Bond, that's when the switch is flipped.
Because it's now going in a different direction. It's going in the direction that Bond wants it to go in, and not in the direction that it's been going in. Yeah, I see that.
Absolutely. So for me, she's half and half.
If she was still married to Peter Sellers, she may never have done the picture. But because she was married to Rod Stewart, who practically went, "Yes, a Bond girl, brilliant. Away you go, love. Fill your boots." So there was certainly no issue. But I don't think Sellers would have had an awful lot to do with being around and making sure that he was looked after, she was looked after. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces. I'm not sure that particular version of Mary Goodnight would have happened if that was still the case.
You could have seen Peter Sellers as a larger knick-knack, actually.
Yes. He'd have gone into full makeup and done the Fu Manchu, I think. For that.
I like her. I mean, I've got no problem with her. I do think she's a bit useless. But as you say, she gets more useless as she's. I think Kieran actually nailed it there. That as soon as Bond's kind of in charge, she seems to fall apart a bit. She turns up in a lovely MG. I think it's the only MG in.
Oh, great colour!
Brilliant.
Yeah, really nice and nice because it was a kind of car of people. Middle class people, probably perhaps not working class, couldn't afford one, but middle class people of that era could get themselves an MG, whereas they couldn't get themselves an Aston Martin. So that's quite nice. Obviously, they were clearly a sponsor because it hangs on the MG logo for quite some time.
Yes, absolutely.
But I thought it was a very nice motor.
My thoughts on Goodnight are very similar to Tiffany Case. Is that starts really good, starts really confident. The writing or the direction, I'm not sure which, lets it down, and they tail off in the third act, and they come a bit.
Anya as well, you could say.
Yeah. Well, there is. And it's just a bit of a shame, really, because there's a lot of good to Goodnight, a lot of good to her.
To a lesser degree, it's also the same as Solitaire. She starts off very strong and then gets weaker. Probably gets a little bit better towards the end of the film. But
she starts off as a really good fortune teller, and she has sex once, and that's all she's obsessed with after the rest of it. She just wants round after round with Roger, doesn't she?
Roger Moore. I mean,
she literally never saw it coming. The Mystic Meg that she was of her day. The casting of Britt Ekland is also very interesting because for those not of a nervous disposition, if you haven't seen The Wicker Man, you certainly should do. With Christopher Lee. And she plays quite a small character, but quite an important character in that. And it's with the greatest respect to Britt. I don't think for a moment that she was cast on the basis of she'll be really good for the character. I think it was on the basis that she will be fantastic to look at on screen.
Beguiling. Just to be beguiling.
Most definitely.
Nothing very much for us to do tonight. Or is there?
Oh, darling, I'm tempted. But killing a few hours as one of your passing fancies isn't quite my scene.
And to have two Swedes in the picture as well. I'm not entirely. What did Maud Adams do before she did this? Obviously, later on, she did a lot more bits and pieces and lots more television, but I don't know what she did prior.
Man with the Golden Gun is her most notable film, but she was in films before, so she wasn't just a model. She was in TV. The Christian Licorice Store. Do we all
Sounds like a winner.
Is that the sweet shop in the Wicker Man? Let's just clarify.
Yeah.
There's a tenuous link there.
She had very tiny parts until The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
She's in something called U-Turn, but then had a much more significant career after.
So that kind of goes along with the Lewis Gilbert approach to this, which of course is that they, as he said during the making of You Only Live Twice, that what they like to do with leading ladies is to employ somebody who is a newcomer.
Yeah.
You know.
But the first time you see Maud, the acting, it's like you can see that her face, she looks so sad, and you're thinking she's on this incredibly beautiful island with Christopher Lee, champagne being delivered to her and everything. But you're like, no, there's something wrong here. This woman's like trapped, isn't she?
You can see she's just going through the motions.
Yeah, it's really that's good acting though, I think.
Yes,
without saying anything.
She's objectified. She's an object.
Yes, she is. Yeah,
she's a commodity. She is basically used by Scaramanga on a daily basis for sexual pleasure and gratification. And when that's not taking place, he doesn't care about her, and it's written all over her. It's actually very good acting.
Yeah,
she's superb. I mean, have you ever watched the documentary? Is it Bond Girls Live Forever? The one that Marianne Darbo. Yeah. So Marianne Darbo re-watches The Man with the Golden Gun with Maud.
Yes.
And Maud's horrified. She says like, this is such terrible acting. I'm like, it's one of the best secondary Bond girl performances. Period. You know, it's such a tragic character. This character is not treated well by anybody in this film, and then is killed and brushed aside.
And that's it. She's not mentioned. Scaramanga doesn't mourn her, does he, whatsoever? Bond doesn't have time to think about her. That's it.
He just says it was a difficult shot, but most gratifying.
It's a very great pleasure for me, Mr. Bond, thanks to Miss Anders.
You have a strange way of showing your gratitude.
A mistress cannot serve two masters. A difficult shot, but most gratifying.
But this is what I say: she is a commodity, and that is testament to his reaction. He sits there and he says, "Forget the girl; she's replaceable." That is literally it. She's a commodity. She is not a woman. He is not respectful of her, and that's testament to when he kills her.
Forget the girl; she's replaceable. I shall find what she stole from me.
Even though it's at Maud's detriment, it shows this guy is something else, isn't it?
I mean, I know we're going to get on to Christopher Lee shortly. That scene where she's obviously been shot, testament to her acting there, because she is the stillest. She's more still, not more. When he's
so many statues and
there's three, isn't there?
And honestly,
sumos, we'll get on to that.
I mean, dare I say it? As much as I love Britt Eklund, not only for this, but The Wicker Man as well, as John mentioned. I mean, shout out, my favourite horror film of all time. I actually preferred Maud Adams' performance in this than Britt Eklund. I think she's a more interesting character. She's got more depth and substance to her, and she's got a better relationship with Bond. And basically, you know, she's in his arms, effectively, metaphorically, and she says, you know, you can have me too if you like, because she's that desperate to get away from him. And
she actually likes Bond at all, or she's completely like, you can have me too if you like. It's really sad, isn't it?
The thing is that, as John said earlier, she's desperate. It's written all over her in every single scene, and she's so desperate to break away and get away from the grasp of this evil and tyrannous man.
I want him dead. Name your price, anything, I'll pay it. You can have me too if you like. Not unattractive.
She's outstanding, and the fact that she will sit there and say that, oh, my performance is wooden and it's no good. I mean, that's a staple of her humility, obviously, but I think she's fabulous, and she doesn't get the credit she deserves for this film.
And just to be fair to Britt Eklund, I don't really think anybody could have played Goodnight any better than her. It's just that's the character and the words she was given, and I do quite like her in it. But there's not a lot to get your acting chops into with that role.
Yeah.
Where obviously
Yeah.
Maud Adams has a lot more she can do and does it very, very well.
Yeah.
She is one of the most tragic female characters in the franchise. It's so nice that she gets to play one of the strongest female characters.
Yeah.
And I know it wouldn't happen now, and everyone would be up in arms. Well, you can't have the same actress like a few films later, but she is regarded, isn't she, pretty much as Roger's ultimate Bond girl.
100%.
That's who I associate with Roger the most, I think. Because
don't forget, she's in A View to a Kill as well, although I've not spotted it.
Watched it times and times again and still can't see it.
Well, they started doing that a while back, but at the start of this movie, you've got Mark Lawrence.
Yeah.
Who of course is the heavy from Diamonds.
Oh yeah.
Is he the same character? It's not terribly clear.
There's a fan theory that he's the same character, and I
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Believe that.
I'd be up for that.
He's got given a name in this, isn't he? He's actually got his cast name. His character name's Rodney. That's what he's called.
Hello, Dave.
I mean, what a plonker. I mean, he is a plonker in the end, but
I think it's an unbelievable performance for however many minutes she gets on screen. You know, to do so much without speaking for your first encounters with her, you've already got a sense of where she stands without her delivering any lines. I think it's an unbelievable performance from her, and a really tragic character. And then before that, obviously, we spoke about Britt Ekland as Goodnight. I think you've got to kind of talk about them and consider them as a pair. They're not, as in, they are. And with the writing, if you're putting these two female characters in, I think they've tried to do a little bit of, Anders is a fairly important character that gets Bond involved. Right, we've got another female character, and obviously this is the writers of the time. I'm not saying it's the right approach, but I imagine they were thinking Anders is a bit of the, it's quite a deep, depressing figure. Goodnight, we need perhaps someone that's a bit lighter, if you know what I mean, lighter in terms of entertainment. I don't think they could have had Anders and then a Bond girl who was also serious. And do you know what I mean? I think they will have considered them as a pair. And, for Guy Hamilton, I know there's this trait where they end up in a bikini, etc. And that's
form. He has form.
Yeah, which you're absolutely right. But I mean, really, this is the first time we've handled two women, two kind of key women. Like Goldfinger, there's you get a bit of a series of women, but I feel like I do think Goodnight and Anders are a bit more of a pair that you need to put together to work out what experience the viewer gets. Kind of, it needs to be, they're playing off against each other a little bit, and I think, like we've kind of all agreed, we've talked about Maud Adams playing Anders very, very well for that same reason. And I think, as Chris said, you've got to give Britt Ekland credit for the way that even if we don't agree with her being written in certain ways, the purpose of what she was written at the time, I think she does deliver really well on how that character was written at the time. So I think they're a good pair, and I do think, even though they might not be ranked highly, I think they're memorable, and both more memorable than a lot of other Bond women.
Well, I would on the back of that, I would also say that the only other memorable pair are Octopussy and then Magda.
Yeah.
Because they very much play off each other. And ironically, it's Maud Adams again, and they're both Swedish. So there's obviously a common there in reality, which obviously highlights their characters on screen.
King and Jones, isn't there? Electra and Christmas.
Yeah. Pretty thing. Yeah.
Pretty lady.
Yeah. Right.
You had her too.
Right.
I think she's great. I think her performance is really strong. Like I say, she's such a sad character, and it completely trapped. And it took, I don't know which viewing, maybe probably like double figures, that I realised that she's the one who sends the bullet. It took me years to realise that. So she's just yeah, I think it's a great performance. And I think, she may not think that, but I think everyone else is involved. Everyone who was involved certainly thought that, because he brought her back for Octopussy. I think she's a great actor, and I think
exactly.
she does. She portrays an awful lot without saying a huge amount, and I think that takes some real kind of skill to do.
100%.
This film, when we were young, a lot of people I knew used to really enjoy this movie a lot. It was so much fun. It was so thrilling. It was funny. And as soon as it finished, we would want to watch it over again. And when you're young and you want to watch a Bond movie, you had no judgmentality over most of the Bond movies at all. You didn't judge them for what they were. You enjoyed them for what they were. And you used to have that mentality of like, let's just stick a Bond movie. Any Bond movie. Yeah, that one will do. And whenever anyone would choose this one out, like, of course, yeah, why not? Go for it. No problem at all. And then as you get older, you start to watch a hell of a lot more movies. You start to grow up. You don't have a lot of free time anymore. And you really want to be using your time to hopefully enjoy yourself and make sure that your time isn't going to be so miserable. And your tastes change. And sadly, this once joyous ride of a movie, you find out that really it's very inconsistent. It's not very coherent. There's a lot of things in there that are good, but you notice things whereby, no, if I saw that at the cinema after Live and Let Die, I wouldn't enjoy that. No, absolutely not. And it's very sad when that does happen. But I suppose in the Bond community, one of the great things about being in the Bond community is that you get to try to reimagine what it was like as a child watching this again, and at least talk about the really good things and the bad things as well. Sure, absolutely. But you try to inspire other people who come to this when they're in their adult life and they try to watch the films in order, or they come across this randomly and they say, no, I don't like it. But I suppose it's up to us to try to inspire other people to say, once upon a time, there was a moment in people's lives whereby people didn't hate on this movie or didn't seem to think it was lackluster, because there's a lot of great stuff in this. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that not only do you not see in any other Bond movie, but in any other movie as well, in terms of the execution of those scary moments in Scaramanga's lair, or the action scenes, or the comedic timing as well. There's a lot of great stuff in here that you don't see in other movies, like in all other Guy Hamilton movies, whereby he's very, very inventive at what he does. And that's his strength, is that you're seeing images and executions of scenes that you have never ever seen before. And I think that's the appealing part, that when you get to something like The Man with the Golden Gun, it is very much a unique film in that sense. In fact, I'm going to go even further. I'm going to say the first 9 Bond movies are all very unique from each other in terms of plot, in terms of styles, in terms of locations and story and characters. And it does seem like from The Spy Who Loved Me onwards, a little bit of a critique, but from The Spy Who Loved Me onwards, they try to sort of take the best bits from the first 9 movies and try to compete or make a very good action-oriented Bond movie from there on in, to a certain degree. But it goes to show how much, like, this film, I think, is very important, because it's a representation of another end of an era. Of course, a few years earlier, you had Connery leaving, but it's an end of an era of Guy Hamilton and the Saltzman and Broccoli partnership. And it certainly needs to be celebrated, because it does belong in a lot of people's hearts. And even though I know some people thought when Rami Malek said, oh yeah, I love The Man with the Golden Gun, some Bond fans were like, mate, why did you not say GoldenEye or Spy Who Loved Me or Goldfinger? You had to choose this movie. But maybe he was being honest and saying, yeah, he really likes this movie. And fair enough, because I think it is very important and very special in a lot of people's hearts. We're not going to get something like this again. And that's the thing when you're a child. You enjoy things for what they are as opposed to what they're not. And I think that's something to celebrate, don't you?
Keep watching for part 3 of our The Man with the Golden Gun 50th anniversary celebration, where we turn to the villains.